Welcome to Chapter 7, where Pip returns home only to face unspoken tensions, rekindles his infatuation with the enigmatic Estella, and learns harsh truths about love, loss, and identity. The next day I caught a coach for the marsh. I knew I should stay at Joe's, who would make up for our horrible visit in the city. But I remembered how awkward things were between us, and decided to stay at the Blue Boar Inn instead. In the morning, I did not go to Joe's. I walked over to Miss Havisham's side of town and thought about Estella. Miss Havisham had adopted her. She had practically adopted me. She must want to bring us together. My heart was light with hope when I rang the bell on the iron gate. Miss Havisham had a new porter. It was Orlick. Joe had fired him. "Ah, young master," Orlick said with a sneer. "There's more changes than yours in the world." Without saying a word, I walked past him. I crossed the gloomy courtyard and entered the house. Miss Havisham was sitting in the banquet room. Her hands were crossed on top of her cane. "I heard that you wanted to see me," I said. I came as quickly as I could. A lady I did not know stood before the fire. She turned around. It was Estella. She had changed. She was even more beautiful than before. I felt as if I had not changed at all. I was still the same coarse and common boy. "Has he changed?" Miss Havisham asked Estella. "Very much," she replied, looking at me. Suddenly, she kissed Miss Havisham's hand and left the room. "Isn't she beautiful and graceful?" Miss Havisham asked with a greedy look. She put an arm around my neck and pulled me close to her. "Love her! Love her! Love her!" Miss Havisham whispered in my ear. "If she favors you, love her. If she hurts you, love her. If she tears your heart to pieces, love her." I had never heard anyone talk like this before. It scared me. "Hear me, Pip," she continued. "I adopted her to be loved. I brought her up to be loved. I made her what she is today. Love her. Love her." Miss Havisham ranted like a madwoman. Her cries cut the musty air of the room. She made the word love sound like a curse. "Go, Pip," she said, pointing her cane at the door. "Go into the garden. Walk with her." Estella and I did as she said. In the garden, Estella walked and talked like a lady. I felt like a little boy beside her, not the gentleman I thought I had become. I could see that I wasn't important to her. She probably never thought about me while she was away. "I have no heart," said Estella suddenly. "Oh, my heart can be stabbed or shot. My heart can stop beating, but it cannot be touched. There is no softness, no tenderness in me." Her cold voice was like Miss Havisham's, but her face and hands reminded me of someone else. It was someone I had just met, but I could not remember where. I left for London without seeing Joe. My mind was crowded with thoughts of Estella. Miss Havisham's words kept ringing in my ears. I was miserable by the time I got home. A few months later, my sister died, and I went to the funeral. When I arrived, the house was full of mourners. Poor dear Joe was sitting by himself in a corner of the living room. He was wrapped in a black cloak, tied at the chin with a large bow. He looked as uncomfortable as he had in London. I bent down to him. "Dear Joe, how are you?" "Pip, old boy," he said. "You knew her when she was a fine figure of a woman." Then he broke down in tears. My sister was buried in the churchyard, beside our mother and father. The larks sang and a light wind blew away the clouds over our heads. I said farewell to the woman who had brought me up. My 21st birthday came, and with it a larger yearly income from my benefactor. On that day, I asked Mr. Jaggers who that benefactor was. "You will know when your benefactor chooses to tell you," replied Mr. Jaggers. I couldn't understand why Miss Havisham wanted to keep the secret. Then I heard some shocking news. Drummle was courting Estella. I left for Miss Havisham's the next day. In Chapter 7, Pip visits his hometown, but avoids Joe, choosing to stay at an inn. He visits Miss Havisham, where he meets the now more beautiful but cold-hearted Estella. Miss Havisham urges Pip to love Estella obsessively, making him feel inadequate. Estella confesses she has no heart, leaving Pip conflicted and miserable. After returning to London, Pip learns of his sister's death and attends her funeral. On his 21st birthday, he receives a larger income but is denied knowledge of his benefactor's identity. Shocking news about Drummle courting Estella spurs Pip to revisit Miss Havisham. This chapter teaches that blind obsession, fueled by manipulation, can lead to self-doubt and misery. Miss Havisham's toxic encouragement pushes Pip deeper into unrequited love for Estella, who openly admits her inability to love. It also highlights the importance of valuing genuine relationships, like Joe's steadfast kindness, over fleeting and superficial desires. This is Chapter 7. Thank you for watching and see you in the next chapter.